My involvement in the fight for Hillsborough Truth and Justice goes back almost 30 years. I got to know some of the Hillsborough families and campaigners as a junior solicitor in the early 1990s during the civil proceedings that were happening then. Following my election to the House of Commons in 1997, I've campaigned for truth and justice on behalf of some of my constituents who are families and survivors for almost 25 years. By the middle of last year, after 32.5 years, the unlawful killing of 97 wholly innocent children, women and men by the gross negligence of the South Yorkshire Police at Hillsborough, all remaining criminal trials against those responsible, collapsed without anyone being held to account. And I believe this represents a gross failure of our entire legal system, because this disaster was carried live on TV. You could see what was happening in the films, and the Taylor inquiry set out accurately that the police were mainly to blame within 4 months of those events. So why did it take 23 years and the publication of the work of the Hillsborough Independent Panel, which in truth was an accident of history? It was an accident that we managed to get the panel going, really, Andy. It wasn't something that was inevitable. So why did it take all that time for the truth that had been accepted by Taylor within 4 months to be told and accepted in full by the legal and political establishment? And why did it take 27 years for the correct inquest verdicts of unlawful killing? We've got to stop that happening ever again, and we've got to learn the lessons to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So now is the time for legislative change. Now is the time. Because although Hillsborough is an exceptionally bad case, you can see the trends of lies and obfuscation and blame deflecting in other examples of disasters. So I agree very much with the Hillsborough law, with the equality of arms at inquests, with the statutory duty of candour, and the Justice Select Committee, of which I'm a member, has made some additional recommendations about the availability of legal aid in this regard. But I think more is needed. Hillsborough shows that attempted cover-ups have got to be torpedoed at an early stage to prevent what happened to the Hillsborough families from happening to others caught up in public disasters. And that's where Lord Michael Wills and I and our Public Advocate Bill comes in. We've introduced it into the Commons and into the Lords and have been doing so since 2015. And it does two crucial things. It gives families agency. Too often, families caught up in disasters through no fault of their own are done to by the system. They just happen to be there. They're not central to what's going on, and they ought to be. The Public Advocate Bill would make families central to what was going on, because they could decide between themselves whether or not they wanted the public advocate to be involved. The public advocate's job would then be to do what the Hillsborough Independent Panel did at a very early stage of proceedings. The panel it was 23 years later, they had to look at 500,000 documents and sort through it all. If you did that process at a much earlier stage, you could stop things going wrong. The only way of stopping Hillsborough happening again, and what happened there with the cover-ups and the lies, is by stopping things going wrong in the first place. And the Public Advocate Bill, by shining the light of transparency at an early stage on what is happening, would torpedo any attempt at cover-ups and would stop things going so horrifically wrong. So I believe that that is an essential part of the changes that we have to make, following on from the final ending of the court cases surrounding Hillsborough almost 32.5 years after the events, and so long after it was accepted by the public inquiry what had gone wrong. Between all of us in Parliament, campaigning outside of Parliament, we can make this happen. The government are now having to consider what they should do about Bishop James Jones's report, which we've heard about today. They will be making decisions. So all of us, inside and outside Parliament, can campaign now to get the Hillsborough law, to make these changes so that the families who've had to go through so much can finally have recognition that their fight has not been in vain, They may not have got all that they wanted. They've achieved the truth being accepted. They have a measure of justice in the inquest verdicts, but they've never had accountability for what went wrong. Nobody has been held to account. They will know, if we get the Hillsborough law, that this is a monument to their fight, to their campaign, and it will stop what has happened to them ever happening to any other families bereaved by public disasters. And I think that that will be a fitting memorial to their lost loved ones, and it will make them understand the monumental nature of their achievement, tough as it has been after all these years, to get to the truth, to fight off the establishment and the lies. And I think we have to do it. We've got to persuade the government to do it, and I think we can.